Thanks for joining us this morning. It is the end of the Great Aussie Barbecue for now. The PM last night ordering a tough new raft of restrictions to limit social gatherings across the country. Every part of our lives will be affected with restrictions on weddings, funerals and house sales, while food courts, beauty parlours and a host of other services are being forced to close. And to discuss this, I'm joined by Nova Radio host Michelle Stevenson and Queensland Senator Matt Canavan. Good morning to both of you.
Good morning.
Matt, let's start with you
Alex.
because, these tough new measures, I guess they were inevitable, weren't they? Do you support them?
Well, look, we have to act here, Ali, and we've all got a responsibility as Australians to do our best here to stop this virus in its tracks. This is literally a barbecue stopper for our country. It's stopping barbecues, it's stopping social gatherings, but what we've got to do now is look after each other. We are behind other countries, so we have an opportunity here to take action, to slow this down and protect people, particularly the most vulnerable in our society.
And it's now hit your hometown of Rocky. You've got 4 cases there, Matt.
Yeah, we do now. We had a case about a week and a half ago from Brisbane, and we've had a few others now come back from the Ruby Princess cruise. So this is affecting everywhere in the country. Obviously, the hearts go to the people of Sydney there, the epicentre there at the moment, but we've all got to take action here to help each other as Australians. And there are probably going to be more restrictions placed on our movement, more restrictions placed on how we go about business. But if we all act together and come together, we'll get through this as a country.
I mean, just talking about the cruise ships there, Michelle, I mean, that's been a debacle, hasn't it? All these people allowed to get off and not be checked.
Yeah, that's been an absolute debacle, and especially being in Sydney, we're feeling we're on the knife's edge as it is. I know for myself, I've been in lockdown. I've just come out of lockdown. I was in for over 2 weeks. I was even isolated from my own family. Until you face those restrictions, you will never take this seriously, and Australians really need to start taking this seriously. If they want this to end, and that we want this to end quickly and swiftly as much as we can, we need to start doing our bit. And that means staying at home, washing our hands, keeping away from people, social distancing. I just don't think people are getting the message. But yeah, as you say, that whole cruise line industry, and we've got more cruises coming in. I don't know what the answer is here. Do we just leave them like they did in Japan with the Diamond Princess? It's been a whole debacle from start to finish.
Yeah, and I don't know what the solution is there because, you know, we've got to protect all of us, but you feel for these people who are on these cruise ships. But Matt, I mean, we're talking about now a total travel ban in place. But I was talking to a mate who is just arriving back from the UK today. So she's flying London, Doha, Melbourne, up to Sydney, where she will then self-isolate. I mean, we know that the majority of these cases have been brought in from overseas. Is it extraordinary that only now are we shutting the borders?
Well, we're one of the first countries to shut borders with China. We're also one of the first countries to shut our borders to all non-essential travel. Look, our governments here have all been taking action in a fast-moving crisis. Because we took that early action, our numbers aren't quite as high as some countries in Europe and what have you. But we've had to take further action here. And I think something that has to be looked at now is how we better track people who are meant to be in self-isolation. There's lots of reports in my local community of people being told they're meant to self-isolate, then being seen down the street and in the shops. And I know state governments are looking and working with the Commonwealth about how we could possibly track people through their phones and what have you, because we have to protect people's health here. That's what they are doing in other countries, and we might have to ramp that up here in Australia as well.
Yeah, and I tell you what, when you hear people flouting the rules, you get pretty angry, don't you, Michelle?
Yeah, definitely get very angry. But I do want to touch on something that has been bothering, I think, a lot of Australians. Why were we not swift enough in closing the borders to the US? I mean, we acted really quickly when it was China, but the US was proving to be a hotbed, and I think we took too much time. A lot of our cases are proving to be via the United States. I just wonder why the government didn't act so quickly on the US.
Do you have an answer for that, Matt?
Well, look, in hindsight, I think closing the borders earlier would have been better, although I would correct most of our cases are still from Europe. So we were early to act on China. In terms of Iran and Italy were the next 2 hotspots. Look, in hindsight, perhaps they should have been closed earlier. But as I said, all governments here have been trying to do the best they can in fast-moving circumstances. And look, overall, I think the leadership that Scott Morrison, all the premiers have shown by working together through the National Cabinet has been a good thing for our country. We've all got to come together as Australians here and make the best decisions we can in very tough times.
Yeah, look, I agree. I think our Prime Minister, I think our opposition leader, how we've watched Canberra really take politics out of this and work together has been a great thing to see. One of the restrictions that is there's a bit of chatter about this morning is that the PM announced last night, which is that hair salon appointments are still allowed, but they're limited to 30 minutes. Now, Matt, I can hear every bloke in the country saying, "Why so long?" Am I right?
Yeah. I think you could do 2 haircuts in 30 minutes fine. So, I mean, look, all of these restrictions are difficult for people, and I particularly want to say that we're very mindful of the impacts on businesses that these restrictions have imposed, and that's why we're taking it one step at a time. We can all see the economic dislocation this is causing. It's unfortunate necessity to protect against this scourge, but we're all just going to have to do our best here, and if we have to limit our hairdressing time to 30 minutes, I think it's a sacrifice we can pay.
Yeah, look, I think we can live with it, but Michelle, I've been hearing people online saying this was definitely a decision made by men.
Yeah, it was definitely a decision made by men. You can't even get your hair blow dried in half an hour, so I don't know what it is I'm going to get done in half an hour. Look, at the end of the day, of course, getting your hair done is the least of our problems, and we'll all have to do our bit. But I think in this circumstance, there's not a lot we're going to be getting done in half an hour, so you may as well just close them.
And I do love that we're looking for the brevity in all the seriousness of this, aren't we? Because we've got to keep that in mind. We've got to keep laughing, don't we?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, my friends and I have this rule that we get together every evening, and we have a conversation. We name 4 things that we're thankful for that are happening through this time, because we've got to remember that there are good things that are coming out of this. For me, it's like getting together and spending more time with my family. You know, we forget. We're so busy. Our lives are so busy, and it is giving us pause to stop and reflect.
I think there's a nice message there. Michelle and Matt, thank you so much for joining us this morning.
Thank you.
And I'm just thankful I get to sit next to Karl each morning.
Thanks, Ali.